we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Space and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, April 8th, 2024, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. I'm your host, Payson the Cinemaster Johnson. Only reviewing one movie this week. Only had time to really go out to theater just this once, but what a movie I'm going to be reviewing. We are reviewing Dev Patel's directorial debut, Monkey Man. And joining me to discuss this movie, first time I've had this guy on, one of the coolest guys in this community as far as I'm concerned. He lives up to his nickname, Matt, the Casual Chaos Dweller. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Looking forward to talk about a good movie.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you did. Yeah, I am 100% right there with you. Before we jump in, real quick, you don't have to go into it. What was your favorite match you watched this weekend?
Favorite match I watched this weekend? I mean, it's probably got to be the main event of the whole thing, Cody and Roman. Yeah.
Yeah. When the Undertaker came out, I just about lost it. But at the same time, really special place in my heart for us, Sammy versus Gunther. That was another really good moment. But we're not here to talk about WrestleMania. We are here to talk about Monkey Man, directed by Dev Patel. This is a movie that I'm not sure if you heard. It was originally intended to go straight to Netflix. Jordan Peele watched it and said, this movie is too good to be buried by Netflix, so I am going to produce this and release this under Monkey Paw Productions. This movie stars Dev Patel. We open on him. We see the younger version of him, and we see his essentially like village like kind of getting destroyed by war criminals, and we see we jump forward in the future. And the reason why he is called Monkey Man is because at night he participates in like underground fights where he wears a monkey mask. These crime lords come into his city, and he wants to get rid of them. So he essentially rises through the ranks of this restaurant. The character does not have a name; it's just known as Kid. Eventually, Bobby or the Monkey Man, and some action starts to ensue. Matt, when you saw the trailers for this movie, or when you heard the stories of this movie, what was your like anticipation level going in, and what were your expectations?
I hadn't heard anything of this movie until I first saw the trailer, and then I was just like amazed. It looked like a fantastic action movie. Then I saw Dev Patel was actually directing it, and I was impressed by that because I mean I really enjoy him as an actor. I think he's very underrated. I think this is probably going to be the lead to him getting a lot more great roles. But yeah, I was definitely excited for that. And of course, the action looked pretty good. So I was definitely hyped up to see it.
Yeah, 100%. Like you, I had not heard about this movie until I saw the trailer, which to me is always like a really fun way to like where like a movie is completely off your radar. And then you get a trailer and then it just says coming out in 2 months. And you're like, okay, I'm sold. I will absolutely be there. And man, watching this movie, I am really excited to see what Dev Patel both does from a directorial point of view, but more importantly, if more directors are going to start casting him in action movies, because I think the reason why this movie works so well is because Dev Patel sells this role so hard. Like you, I've been a fan of Dev Patel, but like this is the first time I've seen him in a role like this. Like I think he's great in Slumdog Millionaire. I love The Green Knight.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lion is a pretty decent movie, but like those are not action movies. So going to this movie, I was like, is he going to be able to pull off this kind of pseudo John Wick role of like doesn't say a lot of words, but is just there to kick ass and just beat people up? And man, does he pull it off, knowing that he was not the original choice to play this role, and then he eventually stepped into the role. You would not believe it because this role seems seamless for him, and he is able to play off both the dramatic side and just the brutal revenge-taking side. What did you think about Dev Patel as an actor in this movie, Matt?
Oh, I thought he was great. He did. I mean, we know he can do great with the drama and the character work. But then, like I said, just seeing him in the action sequences too. I mean, I didn't expect to see that from him, and he pulls it off. He has the great the presence of an action star, and the scenes where he's training and he takes his shirt off and you see he's got that lean, muscular physique, and all the girls are going woo, which I'm sure as the director is probably a nice thing to be able to throw that in there for yourself. But yeah, I was very impressed by how he pulled it off. Yeah.
That reminds me, like, do you remember when Argo came out and like there's that one scene in Argo where like Ben Affleck is coming out of the shower and I was like, okay, Ben, okay, let's calm down a little. It's kind of like that, maybe not to that level, but you talking about that kind of reminded me of. But yeah, like I think something interesting is like Dev Patel has always been like with MGM kind of searching for the new Bond actor. Dev Patel is always one of those names you see thrown in there, and I've always been like he's a good actor, but I'm not sure he can pull it off. Seeing this movie, completely wrong. Like Dev Patel could absolutely be the next James Bond, and I would have zero issue with that. Do you feel similar ways, or do you disagree with that? Or
I mean, I've been on the Bandcamp of saying he should have been the Reed Richards for the Fantastic Four, but I mean, if this is the path that he's going to go, I'm excited for it. I could definitely see him kind of doing. And I feel like he's definitely going to be going back and forth because he can do he can do the comedy, he can do the drama, romance, and all that stuff. And now he's got the action too he can do. So it just opens a whole lot more doors for him. And I think it's another one of those situations where you kind of get frustrated where you're getting a lot of the same material brought to you. And you're like, I mean, I can do this other stuff. So if no one's going to give it to me, I'm going to have to just show him myself. So I think that's really cool.
100%. Like he's one of those guys where I always forget. Like he's only 33 years old, and I always forget how young he is. I think it's just because we were introduced to him at such a young age. Like when he was doing Slumdog, he was like still a teenager, and just seeing him grow up and like mature into these types of roles, I think he's really, really great. Well, but yeah, like we've said, not only did he act in this movie, but this is his directorial debut, and while you can definitely tell this is from a first-time director, at least I could definitely tell this was from a first-time director, especially from like an action point of view. Considering some of the action is like really like tightly shot, so it can be sometimes hard to see. There was a lot of shaky cam. What I really want to give props to the direction of this movie is this is some of the most violent action I've seen in an action movie in a while, and it rarely ever goes to like the comical point of view, like like whenever there's a punch thrown or whatever, like someone gets stabbed, like it hurts and you feel like, oh, like you are wincing there. Like, what was your opinion on his direction specifically in the action scenes, Matt?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too might not be necessarily the first-time director too, but the budget too, because I think it was maybe like $10 million. So when you think about that, it's amazing a lot of the stuff he was able to pull off. I'm not the biggest fan of like the shaky cam stuff, and they did kind of dip into that a little bit, which is a good way to kind of cover when you don't have all the budget. But I like the way he did it too, where he kind of made it more of a POV, so it kind of like puts you in the shoes, and you felt the hits, you felt the stabs, and all that stuff. So I thought he pulled that off really well. The first major action sequence in the nightclub there, which that fight in the bathroom is really great. There are definitely some times I was mad at the character for some of the mistakes he made in that fight, but I mean that tells the story. And not just the fight scenes too, but because right after that it leads to that car chase with that small vehicle, which I thought that was a fantastic car chase. So yeah.
No, yeah, like that. You alluding to that first action scene, like when he's running down the stairs and like the camera's like trembling with them, like that's the type of shaky cam I like. Like when characters are like running, like that's when I'm like, okay, that's when I enjoy it. I do admit when we're actually fighting, I want to be able to see the action. That's where a little bit of my frustration comes from this, where like my favorite types of action scenes are where it is like pulled back and you can really see all the fight performers doing it. But yeah, like you said, this movie has a very small budget, so I think they were really trying to like. I do enjoy it when movies like really like tiptoe around their budget to make you enjoy that. So I will give it credit there.
And I know in like the final fight where you had like all of those people, it kind of got a little bit hard to keep track of what was going on and who you're following and that sort of thing, especially when you have the people that are wearing a lot of the uniforms and the outfits that are similar, trying to keep track of all that stuff too. But yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, and speaking of that final fight, there was a kill in this movie in an elevator that involved a knife that had the entire theater going like, "Oh, here we go!" Like the second that I'd say that kill happens like right before the final fight starts, and the second that happens, I was like, "Okay, I'm back into this movie." I say back to this movie because I think this movie has a really interesting kind of simple plot structure where the first act of the movie you are following the kid as he fights through these underground fight circus, and where he gets a job at the nightclub and at the VIP center. Eventually he escapes, and this isn't really spoiling because it happens around halfway. He escapes and he ends up in a temple where he realizes he has to train, and then the third act is him going back to India to essentially enact his revenge. It is a really like simple 3-act structure, but I think with the story Dev Patel was telling, I really do think it did kind of work. Matt, did the like simple nature of the storytelling structure, like it almost feels like elementary in a way, like did that bother you, or were you able to get behind it?
There was definitely times where it feels like they probably cut out a lot. I bet you that there's probably a much longer cut of this movie that maybe probably when Jordan Peele came on board, he probably maybe gave Dev some notes. It's like, you don't necessarily need all this stuff. You can kind of keep it a little bit more simpler, and the people should be able to follow. Because like the villains aren't really fleshed out all that much. You just kind of know from their one actions with his past that they're bad guys. But yeah, so that kept it really nice. No, there was they kind of hinted at a romance, a love interest, which not all the movies need that. So I'm glad that didn't really lead anything. But you definitely tell that there's probably a longer cut of this. But I thought it worked good. I think they told you enough, and they kind of cheated a little bit using like the news programs to kind of fill in some of the backstory for the villains and that sort of thing. But I thought it worked out pretty well.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you kind of alluded to, I also kind of felt that way of like when you do meet like the escort of the main villain, and when like Dev Patel's character starts to have like you think the movie is kind of going towards like a romance, and then after the movie I was just kind of like, that really didn't go anywhere. And yeah, I think the more you say, there probably were some things that were left on the cutting room floor to essentially make the movie flow a little bit better, because I will admit, even in the movie's current state, I can see some people thinking the second act of this movie might drag a little. It worked for me personally, because I kind of liked how like psychedelic and like and just like atmospheric it got with his training. But yeah, when he does go to the temple, and when the movie is like, okay, he needs to train back up, and like he has the physical part of being a warrior down, but he needs to like get the mental parts of being a warrior down. I can see some people thinking that part is probably the weakest element of the film. What did you think about that part, Matt?
I can definitely see where some people might think that kind of drags, because I mean, you just got through that one major action sequence into the car chase into more action sequences. Now it slows it down. It kind of gives you time to work on some more character work, develop the character a little bit more, give him a chance to train a little bit better. And then they even show like right when they go to like he goes back to the underground fights again right after that, and shows off he's greatly improved. That's where we get to see Sharlto Copley again too, which is nice. I thought he was really great in this movie. Yeah. There's a little bit of comic relief that kind of helped out with that. But yeah, I can definitely see where people might feel like that little section there kind of slows it down a little bit. But this isn't really like a one of those John Wick movies where it's just kind of just going the whole movie. I think that it kind of works that way. You can get a little breather before you get into the final act, which is pretty much a nonstop action sequence.
Yeah, and like with that final act of having like the like criminal bad guys with the people from the temple, and like how they're all like their distinguished costume, I kind of loved that action scene, because like you can very clearly tell who is who and who is on each other's side. So like I really like that final action scene. But yeah, like you said, it's really kind of funny, like not to keep making like allusions to John Wick, but like this is my second favorite John Wick movie. I know most people think the third one is the weakest one, and I think it's because of that like little bit of a lull in the middle of the movie where you're in Morocco. I kind of love it because like it's sandwiched into maybe the two most like intense action scenes of the entire franchise, with the opening and then with the ending of the Continental. So like, and that's kind of why the pacing of this movie really worked for me, is because it built so well to that first action scene in the nightclub, and then you have a section where it calms down. You learn more about Dev Patel's character, and then you go back to finally see why he hates these people so much and why he needs to get his revenge. And yeah, and like I think it ends on a really nice note. Like most revenge movies, it's not easy, but it's kind of the way how it needs to end in this type of story.
And I think it's just a great achievement for Dev, because I mean, when you kind of read about the production, the things they went through. I mean, Corona hit, and they had to kind of change locations to find a cheaper location where they could still shoot. First week of production, he breaks his hands in one of the fight scenes, and then of course the Netflix deal falls apart, and Jordan comes in and helps out. And one thing we haven't mentioned that I really enjoyed was the music, the score, and the songs. The needle drops were great in the movie. I thought they really helped tie it all together.
Yeah, not only the score by, and I wrote his name down, Jed Kurzel, who did a great job with the score, making a really great action score. Like when Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane hits in that first action scene, I was like, oh, we are in, just breaking ears, and it's just like, yeah, I am always up for a good needle drop, and when you like put it in rhythm to like what's going on in the movie, I think it's even more effective. But yeah, that score by Jed Kurzel, I think that's what carried me through this second act, because like not only is it like really intense during the action scenes, but like it becomes beautiful in that second act when Kid is like going around the temple, when he's learning more what happened with his people. Yeah, I think the music of this movie is really, really well done, and I'm very happy you mentioned that, Matt. Well, I think that just about brings brings me to the end of all of my points. Is there anything you want to talk about before we head into final ratings?
Let me. I think the other question. So pretty much, what would you want to see Dev do from this? Would you want to see a Monkey Man 2? Do you want to see him tackle a different genre?
I'm not sure I need a Monkey Man 2. But if I were Dev, I would either like to see another action movie from him, or even like, he's one of those guys I could see being like a David Desmalchian lead type in like a horror movie. And I would like I'm not sure if you've seen Late Night with the Devil yet, but I would like to see him in a role like that, where like really playing off his charismatic lead type, but as just like weird stuff just keeps on happening to him. Because I think Dev Patel is just one of those actors that the audience kind of gravitates to, and we want to like, and I want to see more movies play with that sensibility.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What would you like to see him do next, Matt?
I mean, I think you said it perfectly. I feel like this Monkey Man, I think this is a great, probably a one and done. I don't really think they need to. I don't know how well it performed at the box office this week, so I don't know if it's one that they're going to try to force something. But I think that it did really well, and they can definitely move on to do something else too.
Yeah, looking at what this movie did at the box office, it wasn't like a huge success, but it did make its money back, and I think that's because they were able to keep the budget low. So definitely a good return on investments. Well, we do review movies here on Cinemaster's reviews from a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes. 0 being absolutely awful, atrocious, something you never want to see again, and 10 going down as for you an all-time or one you will remember forever and reminds you why you love movies. Matt, on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, what would you give Monkey Man?
This is always hard for me. I rarely go super high on a movie if I've only seen it once. So I'd probably do 8.5 for now.
8.5. I like that. Yeah, that is a great score. I think that's a great movie. I think I'm going to go slightly lower, and I'm going to give it the 8 videotapes out of 10. I think this was a solid directorial debut from Dev Patel. I think he's only going to learn more and more going forward from this. I'm really excited to see what he does next, and I think this just shows how great of not only an actor he is, but also how great of an action star he is. I love how visceral this movie feels. I love the revenge style story. I just think it's a really good movie. If you have the time, please go see it in theaters. I would recommend seeing it in theaters if you can. If not, check it out as soon as you can. But yeah, I'm very happy Jordan Peele saw what I think a lot of us saw in this movie when it came out, because this is not a movie that deserved to go to streaming by any means. But yeah, I think that just about brings us to the end of our show. Thank you all for watching. Matt, thank you for coming on to be my guest tonight. Before you leave,
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, is there something you would like to plug?
Nothing I really think I can plug right now at the moment. Just keep watching the great content, the multiplex and the video store. Keep watching Payson's reviews. Good stuff.
Thank you so much, Matt. Before we go, I gotta ask, what's your dog's name?
I got Rico and Norman right now. They are fighting for attention, so I apologize for that if you heard some in the background, but they're doing okay.
Here at Cinemasters Reviews, we are pro pets, we are pro dogs. Shout out to Rico and Norman, they're awesome. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. We're always putting out great stuff. Next week, we are going to be reviewing Civil War, which is sadly, it looks like Alex Garland's last directorial effort. I've been a big Alex Garland fan, wasn't the biggest fan of Men, but I loved Ex Machina and Annihilation. Not sure how you feel on those, Matt, but those were really enjoyed. So very excited for that. I'm probably gonna. Oh, and I forget what it's called, but the new Nicolas Cage horror movie. I want to say it's called Arcadian.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty excited for that. Just saw the trailer recently, so that's probably gonna be the second movie I review next week. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Matt, for coming on to be the guest. And as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.